Is Nakai the Wanderer a one KROX army in patch 6.3.3? Why didn't I have a video on Nakai? Because I hadn't played him. Yes, even I got scared of his DLC. Also, for a long time, his mechanics were broken as the player in Warhammer 3. Let's look into what he can do when you are using him. Recruited by choice or by confederation, Nakai has 388 upkeep, no mounts ever. He's too big for that. Health comes at 7,368 on Ultra. With no boosting, armor is 120, missile resistance 25%, leadership 80%, speed 50, and charge speed 85. We're seeing some solid stuff here. Melee attack begins at 60, which is a very decent level, attack interval at the standard 4, splash target size large, not medium, large, so trolls will dilute his damage, and max targets damaged by splash is 5. So, melee defense 40 is a lot lower. Weapon strength 520 is split base 140 and armor piercing 380, with no bonus versus large or versus infantry, but that's good general armor crushing stuff. Charge bonus is 32, and mass is 4,000. Right out of the rainforest, Nakai is a siege attacker, inflicts fear and terror, has vanguard deployment, hide in forest, woodsman, which erases forest combat penalties, but if I'm tracking my mechanics right, wrecks aquatic trait, has the cold-blooded single-target anti-rampage ability, has primal instincts for when under 50% health, and predatory fighter for a temporary boost when enemies flee before you. Has wall breaker, which is really good to know, and primal roar, which is a self and allies boost active ability, 120 second cooldown, 35 meter range, 25 seconds, melee attack plus 40, and 20% physical resistance, and inflicts rampage on your own forces, including Nakai himself. Of course, if you are using this, you want to go Kroxagore Smash anyway. As a faction leader, the Wanderer runs his own horde, which runs by its own rules. His faction is immune to trespassing diplomatic penalties. Other hordes use global recruitment. His own unlocks units, and then you just recruit normally and locally, which means he will be a giver of gifts and units a lot. Anyway, he also gets Kroxagore Ancients plus 3 rank when recruited. As a general, first spawn gives him recruitment cost minus 15% for Kroxagores and variants thereof, melee defense plus 5 for the same, and woodsman for everyone in his army. See what I said about aquatic earlier. But hey, Kroxagores are a lot more likely to get bogged down in forest than splashing around in the water. It's not a big loss. Part of why I'm doing this video is I was asked if my lack of mentioning Nakai boosts for Kroxagores meant he had not. No, I just reserve such talk for Lord videos usually, but I was behind on making them. This is paying down that debt a little. And, by the way, I'm not going into a lot of the boosts that come from his tech tree, which is unique in the Lizardmen race, but that's going to be for a separate video. Being a walking horde mechanic, his blue line is a little bit different. Root Marcher is the norm, but Spawn of Itza grants up to plus 5 horde growth per turn at 3 pips. That's actually the only difference from usual as far as I can tell, so I'll skip the rest for now. The red line ends with Stand Your Ground, the old standard for this game, so more leadership but also more melee defense. That is good to know. In line with the Ancients, the top line at rank 4 unlocks Obedience Brings Victory, Leadership Aura plus 5 effect, and Aura Radius plus 50%. Simple and good. Rank 8 allows Reptilian Resilience, plus 10% hit points for 1 pip. Missile and spell resistance pips are 10% as per most races. For the main combat line, Predatory Fighter gives plus 10% weapon strength, and charge bonus plus 5 flat. Enforcer of Order brings at 2 pips the standard plus 5% weapon strength, but an extra plus 10% against basically all evil factions. Thick-Skinned is plus 15 armor at 2, Blade Master plus 12 melee attack at 2 pips, Devastating Charge in the first part of the line, plus 30 flat charge bonus at 2, and remember he started with 32, so it's a huge boost compared. Miasma of Despair is similar to other Ancients, 90 second cooldown, 35 meter radius, minus 30% speed, and minus 8 leadership to enemies for 16 seconds. Not a bad thing. Not when you already inflict fear and terror, at least. Woundmaker is another plus 20% weapon strength at 2 pips, Scarred Veteran plus 15% health at 2, Impassioned plus 12 melee defense at 2, and its melee defense was not his best trait here. Expeditious Endeavor plus 15% speed at 2, and the Capstone supercharges your Miasma to make it Aura of Inertia, and that is 90-second cooldown, but 24 seconds duration, and on top of the previous benefits, it's 1% fatigue buildup per second within the 35 meters, at least if I'm reading this right. For the very personal line, starting at rank 10, Legendary Warrior grants 50% less fatigue buildup to Nakai himself, plus 5 to his leadership effect, and plus 20% to his aura. Yes, this is going to stack with the rest. Nakai is a natural leadership radiator. This opens the rest of the line per old rules, so the next is Demon Crusher, granting plus 10% more weapon strength, plus 15 flat charge bonus, and in melee, for 35 meters around him, he gives himself magical attacks, not as if he has ranged anyway, and removes the demonic attribute from enemies. I don't know that this removes the demonic instability, in fact I suspect not, but demonic is what gives them physical resistance and their immunity to fear and terror, so at best they'll run, leave his aura, and disintegrate promptly, as soon as they leave that radius. Something like that. Cold-Blooded Reflexes gives melee attack plus 5, melee defense plus 5, and Discouraged as a contact effect, so minus 16 leadership to enemies. This affects demons and undead anyway. First Spawning grants speed plus 10% to his own army, and Frenzy to all of his Kroxigors in own army, so that's the other big boost he has for them, and it's a doozy, since melee attack plus 10, weapon strength plus 10%, and charge bonus plus 10% means a lot, plus immunity to terror is nice. Also, Blessed base Kroxigors have a much higher charge bonus than normal. Adornments adds plus 3 to horde growth and plus 6% casualty replenishment to own army, and that's a nice buffer. The Sacred Wanderer makes Nakai unbreakable and adds Vanguard Deployment, not to him since he already had that, but to his entire army. Take that, Vlad. Golden Tributes is his first legendary item available at rank 7, granting 5% ward save to self, melee defense plus 5 to self, any passive of the same name, 35 meter radius, minus 1% fatigue to self and all allies within that radius, and 10% ward save to himself and allies. So they get 10 and he gets 15. Awesome. The Ogam Shard, available at rank 10, brings casualty replenishment plus 3% to Lord's Army, corruption minus 3 local province, and 25% spell resistance for Nakai. The Set bonus provides horde growth plus 5 for Nakai, and plus 10% magic item drop chance post-battle plus 10%, which in the new system is really worth it. This means Nakai could potentially equip some very snazzy weaponry and so on, so watch out for that. So how do we use Nakai? This isn't a campaign-focused video, I want more deep knowledge before doing that, but let's raise one issue first. His animations are famous for going deep into formations and for being on the long side. So keep in mind, he does tend to go in deep, but if you have Kroxigors and Dinos with him, he won't be alone, and with Skinks helping the front line, it'll be beefier than ever. The bigger problem there is that like any Kroxigor, he's not the absolute greatest about being shot, so you'll need to get crafty about that. And use chameleon skinks. But beyond that, let's review the simple realities of Nakai. He brings high leadership generation, fatigue erasing via item, frenzy by personal line, defense by red line capstone. He inflicts on the enemy fear and terror, denial of demonic immunity to fear and terror, fatigue, reduced speed, and he inflicts a good deal of damage. So he's all about making the enemy scared and slow and making his own sides not scared and fast, because Predatory Fighter makes you get faster when the enemy gets scared. To take advantage of this, you need speed, not just Kroxigor speed, but Cold One's speed. Not that you can't use source infantry help, but if you're going to overcome enemy ranged attacks, you need the ability to get in the enemy's face, and that's going to need some work. Of course, Nakai can't use magic himself, and you need priests and oracles for that, and so on. You'll get there. What he can control is being able to utterly smash the center of a battle and lead a route that proceeds outward. How fast you get to that route is based on how strong you are, how weak the enemy is, and so on and so forth. So you constantly have to be prepared to create breaches and exploit them. If fear and terror aren't enough, Primal Roar with high damage, but not necessarily high attack units, Kroxigors, should do a lot. Beyond that, you're just grinning with claws at the ready for when you get anti-large cavalry to clear the flanks and reduce one more impediment to the Kroxigor Wrecking Ball. It's like the Black Orc Wrecking Ball, but at troll speeds. The rest is up to you. And one final note, even though this isn't a campaign video, he recruits regular Kroxigors at tier 3 of his base settlement, quote-unquote, building. but the third building in the skink building chain is what gets you sacred Kroxigors. So that's how things are at present. Take care, and have fun turning Kroxigor laborers into hardened warriors. Nakai's boot camp isn't something you do, it's something you are. March with pride.